drought crisis in a decade. According to Save the Children, 70% of households don't have enough food to eat. Thousands of children are reportedly dropping out of school and hundreds of thousands have been displaced. Now, according to the organisation, donors now only have a very narrow window to prevent a looming major humanitarian disaster in Somalia. The BBC's Mercy Juma reports.
Families are now going without meals on a regular basis. Save the Children says that in more than 1 out of every 3 households, they'd found at least one person who hadn't eaten at all in the last 24 hours. And in over half the households they looked at least one person in each family had lost their source of income, largely due to the whole-scale death of livestock.
The previous drought was a tough one, but this is the worst, with water being hard to find. We don't have food and our livestock are dying. People have died of this drought and will continue to die if we don't get help soon. We depend on our livestock and our crops, which on 2 consecutive years have been decimated by desert locusts.
Our kids have not been to school for some time now. It's impossible for us to send the children to school without food and water. Also, we don't have any money to pay the school fees.
Somalia has experienced 3 major drought crises since 2011. This year, latest food security projections suggest that 4.6 million Somalis will face crisis to emergency level food insecurity in the next few months.
With the forecasts for a below average March to May season, we're extremely concerned. It is uncertain how people will survive there. The next 2 to 3 months are going to be critical, and early action is indeed needed to prevent a humanitarian disaster across the Horn of Africa.
In the 2011 drought crisis, when the UN declared a famine in Somalia, 3.7 million people faced crisis levels of food insecurity. A slow global response to the early warnings of the famine led to at least 260,000 people, half of them under the age of 5, dying from hunger and related conditions across the Horn of Africa. Save the Children estimates that this time over $1.5 billion is needed to give vulnerable children and their families across Somalia enough food, healthcare, education and water to get through this crisis. Mercy Juma, BBC News.
Well, let's discuss this further. I'm joined now by Ahmed Ibrahim, who is a representative for Save the Children. He joins us from Mogadishu. Thank you for speaking to us here on Focus on Africa. Last week, I believe you actually visited a number of sites and spoke to people that have been affected. Can you tell us what you found?
Thank you very much, Lumasta. I think one of the most important critical situation I have seen my visit to some of parts of Somalia is that the number of people who are reaching in urban areas. I was visiting last week in Kismaya town, and I visited one of the settlements, and what I find is that more than 100 people arrive on daily basis. This is similarly happening across the country, and this is one of the droughts that is massively happening not only one part of the country, but covering widely and across the country. Lucasta, I think one of the biggest problem now we are facing is that we are seeing a huge number of people fleeing from the original places with small resources to respond to the crisis. And for that reason, it's just a cry that we are facing in everywhere we go in these places in Somalia.
Well, one of the things that has been highlighted by Save the Children, of course, is the number of children who are not in education. I mean, how realistic is it that those children will be put back into school when their parents can't even find food for them? How are you going to do that?
Well, I think overall, education is one of the worst affected parties of or sectors in social sector of Somalia by the droughts. And we were working with the Somali government and civil society groups to provide basic education to millions of children living in Somalia. However, because of the drought effect, many of them have left their original places, moved to new places, become IDPs, and as you said, struggling for basic food survival. Save the Children is still trying to respond to these IDP camps where the children have arrived. so that we provide immediate early services of education, and then we do assess how we can best provide the support.
And do you have enough resources to meet those needs?
Well, as I said, I think one of the biggest concerns that we have as Save the Children and, of course, the wider humanitarian community is the minimal resources available to respond to such situation. I mean, and this is actually it's the thing that is triggering our big concern that the situation will be similar to what has happened in 2011, where we lost more than 250,000, which I think more than 50% were children at the age of 5 years. And I do believe unless the international community and the donors provide required resources, it will be difficult to control the situation, and it will put us in a situation where we struggle to at least provide the basics to keep alive these humans.
Okay, Ahmed Ibrahim from Save the Children, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, do stay with us because he's getting ready to play his part.